right, it is Monday, June 4th, and we have a quorum. I call the Human Services Committee meeting together. And our first item of business is approval of the meeting minutes of May 7th.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay. So we have several citizens signed up, several people just with some general comments, so I'll call you first, and then the other people can speak just before the item that you wish to address. And so Jackie Prince, it was sort of a general comment. Is Jackie still here? And then John Prince was a general one, and then Madeline Ducray maybe is another general.
Hello, Jackie Prince here. Good to see everybody. I have a general comment, but before I give my general comment, I just want to let you know about my experience with the Evanston Police Department and with Chief Eddington. I've known Chief Eddington since almost the beginning of his career. I was in Class 4 of the Citizens Police Academy, which was just an amazing time, and there were amazing officers who taught us, and so I am so appreciative of that. And I only have positive things to say right now about the police department, so I hope things go well for them tonight. That's number one. Number two, I am sort of making a comment about the previous meeting where you're thinking about having the city clerk be an appointed official as opposed to a voted official. And as a Evanston resident, longtime Evanston resident, 46 years plus, I do not want that taken away from us to have the ability to do that. What I would like to see is to have the city manager position be a voted position, because there's nothing worse than having a city manager that is not reflective of your community, who does not listen to the community, and who has eliminated pretty much every minority held position within the city.
So Jackie,
Thank
these
you.
are
Have
these
a
are
good
really
day.
things to come to the Rules Committee. Alderman Fisk.
No,
Yeah, okay. Okay. Whoops. Okay, and John Prince.
He passed.
He passed? Okay, and then Madeline Ducray, did you want to speak at this point? Is she still there? Oh, here she comes, okay.
Madeline Ducray again. I just want to touch on a few things here. We have the budget here. We're cutting a lot of people who have done a lot for this city, and one of them, I think, is especially Kevin Brown department here. And I just want to mention a little something here. Several years ago, we had productive dialogue. Someone mentioned that tonight here. And I'm kind of concerned, and I get angry sometimes. And there's a reason for that. Okay, now if we think that we have a problem here in Evanston, when we had the dialogue on race, why would we have 3 months? Former Tisdale, Dolores Holmes, and I don't know if the other aldermans remember this, but I expected at least a year. At least 6 months. But 3 months, if Evanston care about the young people here in Evanston, 3 months, 3 months, and then there was space. So Evanston cannot tell me a tootin' thing about race, and they care about race here in this little town. Because if they did, they would have had it every goddamn month until we had a dialogue, a real dialogue. Because I don't know about anybody else, but I found out a lot of good things about white folks in this town, okay, of what they did. And I don't mean no little backlash about this. I'm telling it like it is, okay? And there's a lot of good things that black folks have done in this town. And there are some things that some people keep stopping every time. Every time we get this close to helping my black children, colored children, because I think that black is putting us back in that bucket of crabs, okay, stepping on us. And I'm not going to go into it tonight. But I just think that if we really cared about this, we would put more effort in it. And some black folks say, oh, why is she talking about that? Guess what? I don't care anymore. White folks ain't the only one harassing people. Black folks harass black folks when they don't agree with them. But guess what? In the end, if we really want to do something about this little town, we will open up dialogue. That's why I disagree with the mayor. We need to hear more voices, not shut them out. And then maybe you all would make a better decision. About the Board of Ethics, I think Ann Rainey brought that up. Respect. I'm not calling any names, but I've heard some council members on this stand here was most disrespectful. And you have it in the little paper there that says respectful comments. And why do I have to apologize for my constitutional right to get up here and say, am I an angry black woman, angry colored woman? What would you all prefer me to do? Like, do you all remember President Bush when he went to that other country and their culture, their style was to take off their shoe and throw it at you when they disagree? I've never seen any president ducking and during them. I laugh. But to think about it, there's a different system there. So we're doing well here in Evanston, believe me. Because there's many times I felt like taking off more than my slipper or my shoe, okay? General assistant. Now, I ask the city manager, I asked the city council. Now, some of you up here, you were not here. So if the shoe fits, wear it. That's all I can say. Down home, country, slang, whatever you want to call it, but that's what I'm talking about. The general assistant, we asked them, I didn't beg, some people did, but keep the general assistant. Now, many of the general assistant things is on the chopping board. Why is that? Again, Sanctuary City. I am tired of people lying to me about the Sanctuary City and what is involved in there. Are people coming here to this country, taking my jobs if I was young enough to get one? Yeah, stop lying. They are. Tell the truth. If we stop lying to our young children, then maybe they can look at things differently. Maybe they won't go into the schools and be killing people with guns and stuff. Maybe the black young children won't be killing up each other. That's just two of the things. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Before we now move on to the agenda, Chief Eddington, did you want to make your announcement about the gun buyback program?
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to take this opportunity to again remind the community that Saturday, June 9th, 2018, from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., there will be a gun buyback at the Christ Temple Church, 1711 Simpson Street. I want to take this opportunity to thank Reverend Cherry. This is the second time he has hosted one of these events, and would for him to allow us to use his church in this safe space to conduct this important business is very important to the department and the community. I want to hit on some rules for the gun buyback, and also if I don't cover what you're concerned about, please call 311. You must have an ID and be a resident of Chicago. I'm sorry, you must be a resident of Evanston, Skokie, or the north side of Chicago. The guns must be unloaded and operational. The guns must be complete and functional. The weapons should be transported in a case or bag or box or in the trunk of your car. This is an amnesty-based program. There will be no arrests, and we will pay $100 cash per gun. I want to again also thank the donors who made this possible. These funds are not tax dollars. They are from donations from the community to fund this program. Thank you, Chairman.
Great. Thank you. All right. We've had a request to move up HH5 to be the first item on our agenda about the City of Evanston Youth Job Center building career pathways to sustainable employment program. And I believe we have a nice report in our packet, but do we have somebody who would like to say something? Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of council. Lawrence Hemingway, Director of Parks and Rec. Yes, I would like to just bring up our partner for this program, Karen Demaros, who is the Executive Director of the Youth Job Center. We actually have a participant here who has a ceremony that Karen works closely with. And we're very proud of the program under the leadership of Kevin Brown, and we look forward to continuing in the very near future. Karen?
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. I want to introduce, this is Peyton Walters. Peyton has been with us for a few years and wants to share just very quickly a little bit of his story and a little bit, we'll talk just very briefly about sometimes the complexity of meeting each individual person's needs and interests when they're starting out on this path.
Thanks, Karen. Hello. Hi. I've done this before. So I went through a period of homelessness, it's a year and 4 months, and I found the Youth Job Center during that time. There were several nights and days where, man, I felt like giving up and not going on and continuing, and I would try to find stable housing, and it was a difficult time. I had just flown back up to the States in Jamaica, where I found refuge in the mountains with my father. And January 28th, it's my first day at the Youth Job Center. I went and registered for their job readiness program. And I found through my time in homelessness that it's hard to get out of that pit if you don't have sustainable income. The Youth Job Center helped me find this sustainable income through their job readiness program, and also provided emotional support for me, as well as coaching. I went through the program, and they provided me with skills that I didn't have prior to coming to the Youth Job Center. And from just talking to me with different people in the training, from doing mock interviews to trying on clothes in this groovy attic they've got, it was very, very helpful. Very talented staff. And it's proved to be very, very helpful for myself. I am really in debt to them. Since then, I found they helped me find my jobs from Express to Starbucks, and I've moved on, and now I'm housed, so I can say that to you all. But I don't think it. I don't think it was. I don't know where I'd be without them. I'm now in college as well, and working on getting another job to support myself even further. And I continue to go back to the Youth Job Center for help. And so, yeah, I can't stress enough how important it is of how helpful it was to go through the job readiness program they have. I offer a couple other programs as well, and I'm quite interested in those, like an automotive program as well. However, it was very, very helpful to me, extremely helpful. So, yeah, Karen.
Great. Thank you.
So I'll just share very quickly. Peyton's very modest. He actually was an example for so many young people. He went to work every day while being homeless for months and months and months. Got up every day. It's one of the hardest things that young people can do, and he persevered and kept going and kept putting one foot in front of the other. He actually just comes now because he's our friend. You know, he doesn't need us anymore. This is like the perfect example. Succeeding in college and a successful future. And one of the reasons it's important to have Peyton or someone here is every young person's experience is different, and we have this great model for career pathways where we want young people to come in and get training and get into a skills-specific training that leads into a living wage job that they will then be able to build on. And that's an ideal path, and it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes there's starts and stops and sideways trips, but the reality is that we work in partnership with the city with all of these young people to figure out how to get that path, how to continue on that path so that it continues to move towards the ultimate outcome we need. Great grades, Oakton Community College.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your story. Any,
I want to add one thing.
okay.
So just to show the council the integration of, we have a grant with YOU for runaway and homeless youth, and that grant supports our outreach workers, two of our outreach workers who, and this is one of our clients, and so that grant works in support with the monies that we dedicated from the general fund to go into the Career Pathways program. So there's an integration and a wraparound in terms of support. Youth Job Center case manages this client as well as the City of Evanston case managing. So we're trying to provide these wraparound services and supports to help our young people. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Very helpful resource, though.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Oops.
So, Madam Chair, in conclusion, I don't need to read the report to you guys, but the Career Pathways program is a very, very important program for our department. It's got an 87% success rate. The clients that are identified are purely work with very closely so that we can reach that. Our ultimate goal is 100% for the program. So the report is in your packet, and we do appreciate it. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer.
Right, yep. So, Alderman Fleming.
Thank you. I don't have a question, just a compliment for Mr. Peyton. I just applaud the effort that you took to come here, the effort that you took to complete the program, your honesty about where you were and where you are now, and I think probably can speak on behalf of all of my colleagues that we want to encourage you to just keep going further, and you're a great role model for us as a city to remember there are youth like you who we would not necessarily hear from on a regular basis that we need to remember are out there, and hopefully the taxpayers are paying attention and understand the importance of such programs. So thank you for coming to share your story.
Of course, and thank you.
Great, thanks. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you all very much for.
Thank you.
Yep, okay. Okay, HH1, and I believe we had Betty Esther. Did you want to comment about this?
No, because that is the work plan that the police department has, and Mr. Wright usually gives the update, although I didn't look at it. So, but what I wanted to talk about was the report that the Complaint Assessment Committee submitted last month and stuff. I did go through that report and everything. I would encourage all of the residents in the community to read that. It's a lot of pages. It's about 73 pages. But in going through that, one of the things I noticed in the questions that this was from their surveys, as to the number of people that made the comments and things that, yes, when they file a complaint, they would like to do it with someone else, independent of the police department, not a clergy, but someone else. That is what we, the Citizens Network of Protection, has been working for over these past, it's been 10 years now. and stuff. So we are slowly getting there, and we hope to, and we'll be bringing and encourage you to go to the Citizen Network of Protection website to read the proposal. It is something that is needed. And in all of our research that we did, looking at the different communities around the country that has police oversight committee, one of the major things that we found was that these committees, these boards, these bodies was put in place either by court decree or in agreement with the Justice Department, or the people did it. But it was put in place because of the treatment that the black population, or as Madeline calls us, the colored population, were receiving from the police department. When we talk about police department, we are talking about a culture of people that wears uniforms that are blue. That means when they say, well, you heard the saying, and it was at this man restaurant, they was talking about culture and diversity and stuff, and what people mean by when they say I'm colorblind, that means you don't see me, you don't see nobody, because everybody has a color. So with that, I encourage you to read that, to see what these people put down, what they had to say. It is profound what they are saying. They are speaking it, and they did that because they had a sense of, I have a platform, I can say this, nobody won't know who I am or why I didn't file, but I should have. So read those. Those are very important to read. The only disappointing thing about the report that was kind of disheartened, that they went back and they looked at Eugene, Oregon, with the man that worked with them, which was over 13 years ago. There's been so much improvement and changes in Police Oversight Board. I hope when they come back with their final report that they have taken the time to look at the information that we have given them and shared with them, that is of an updated information on police complaints, oversights, and the like. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so for the police issues work plan update, there was just one item in that vast chart that has new information, and that's the crisis intervention team training. Is that correct? Where we now have two officers are now, additional officers are slated for training in June. Or have they just gotten the training? So now we have 59 officers who have attended this training program. So did anybody have any comments or questions about the update plan? Okay. Then let's move on to the police department budget and staffing review. And Junad Rizki was going to make a comment on this one.
Of course, I guess in the Rules Committee someone mentioned this, but once again, I will ask the council to buy Mr. Bobkowitz's contract out. And I'm not going to go into detail of that because I'm going to talk about the police budget more. I noticed the claim is merely being made by city staff that the city that staff has been cut in many other departments, but not the police and fire. My problem is many of these other departments aren't functioning too well. As I mentioned, facilities has a serious problem, cannot run Robert Crown possibly. We have probably a major mess there. Economic development, as we saw in the last few meetings, the Smiley Brothers Recycling Center property was not put back on the tax rolls, and we lost $50,000. And, you know, I've been asking for over 4 years to bring in a business consultant to look at the water department, the huge amounts of money being spent there and what's going on. But we have money now to look at a consultant to look at the police department. So it's odd that the council wants to continue not to look at something so large and so costly and such a large operation. and we want to look at police. And it's interesting to me because, as I keep saying, there's a new memo that just came out too about the operating budget of the city. And I don't know if this has even been talked about yet. It's called daily operating costs. But what's interesting in that is, if you look at it carefully enough under the water fund, what you will see, they're taking money out of that fund in huge quantities and transferring it to the city budget. But they also have a line item there that's operational. And what this whole thing was before was it was supposed to cover operations. So now we're even double dipping that. But what I find very disturbing in a lot of this too is the police department here. And there are a lot of people who are critics of it. I'm not necessarily a fan of the police department or critic, but what I do know, they have not had any major lawsuits. Maybe they've had one small lawsuit, I believe, over an issue of a shooting of a dog, and it cost the city, I believe, $50,000. But when I sit here and realize all these other lawsuits, Mr. Bobkowitz had a lawsuit that cost us over $900,000, a discrimination lawsuit. So when you weigh in on, what I would call an operation, that operation is pretty successful given the kind of interactions it has to have and the cost to the taxpayers. So to me, that's a pretty high sign of quality of an operation. I realize there's many issues with it and many people have opinions, but $1 million lost versus very little lost is pretty good in that sense to me. And we basically, have the James Park lawsuit, which was created by Mr. Bobkowitz and some council members. That's $3 million, Alderman, and that translates into basically your budget hole. We've spent $3 million on James Park, 7% property tax increase, and that's another problem here. Really, what I find troubling too, when we look at the police and fire, there's another budget here, and that's Mr. Bobkowitz's $9 million budget. And that budget isn't being discussed in relation to all of this. And in the daily operating cost, he just distributed it out over those other departments' budgets. And it isn't being analyzed or looked at. And I believe some of that money is not being properly used. It's being used for what I would call things certain aldermen want. I'm not saying all the aldermen. As I keep saying, we have people here doing things for Mr. Bobkowitz as their facilitator. And it's not a good thing. And I realize council members rely too much on Mr. Bobkowitz and not enough on their own thinking, because Mr. Bobkowitz, he takes a lot of people out to lunch. And he talks to all of you and continues to talk to you.
Yeah.
But
so Junaid, do you have some more things that you want to say about the police department budget issue, though? Or?
Well, I think what I'm trying to really wrap it around, the whole issue is you have a police department here, did a very good, reasonably successful job from the indicator I just said to you. And then you basically have messes in some of the other parts of the city. So the real issue is, what is the police department really doing wrong? Yes, maybe you could cut a few things. Reality is, though, other things are causing a budget problem here. And those things are these lawsuits, these other things, and spending of money. And I'll just summarize 3 things. I've looked through all these things in the budget, and 25% of that is a problem. We have problems just from the problems we have here that raise our property taxes 1 year 25%. We also, and I don't know if some of you missed this or not with Robert Crown, it is a 7% property tax increase in year number 5. And that cost of Robert Crown is your budget hole this year. That's what it's going to be. So you've got that. You've got all these lawsuits. It's not the police. I know some people here want to say, it's other things. And, the state. It's this and that. It's the other things here that have caused the problems, and we need to look at those other things. And that's why I keep on coming back to the council and saying, we need to get a new, fresh look here with somebody else. A new city manager has to look at this. That's the reality, because we're not going to, and there's certain aldermen up here that are going to keep wanting to hide everything because they were part of it.
Okay,
all right,
thank you. Alderman Fisk.
I'm sorry, that's enough of that.
Okay. City manager, do you want to take us through this information in the packet?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, good evening. As part of the budget process for 2018, I informed you my desire to take a closer look at the police department as far as its budget and as far as opportunities for making some changes. And since that time, Chief Eddington and I have had a series of discussions, and we have come up with a plan which we think is appropriate and makes sense. And I brought that plan to your committee this evening for your review. There are 4 components to that. The first is a review of a scope of work for a proposed management audit of the administrative community services functions of the police department. As you know, the council allocated $25,000 to assist in this review, and I've included in your packet on page 13 an organizational chart of the department, and I apologize, given the computer network problems we're having this evening, we're not able to put that up on the screen for you to look at. But what we would like to do is retain a consultant to look at 2 component parts of the department. First, those that support the administrative functions of the department. So as you look at the organizational chart, you see there's a position of an executive officer, the positions within the Office of Professional Standards, the work that is done in our PST, Community Strategies group, and looking also then at the administrative functions, the Office of Administration within the department. I think there's opportunities for us to look at that to perhaps streamline some of those operations. Clearly, the challenges we face with the community policing, we've done an excellent job over the years in addressing those, but I think it's important to look at the balance between sworn officers and perhaps paraprofessionals that could help the officers share information with the community. I think certainly in the last couple of years we've seen a lot of property crime issues. I think we need better tools to make sure that our residents are plugged in, that when there are issues in their neighborhood that we can get that information to them in a quick way. Certainly there are tools that are available through social media, through electronic communications, which we have. I don't know that we leverage to the greatest extent possible, so I think it would be important for us to have a third party look at that. In the area of the Office of Professional Standards, a lot of discussions have occurred over the last year or so about that. I think it would be important to take a fresh look to see how other departments are doing that. Again, the mix of paraprofessionals and sworn officers, I think, makes sense there. And then finally, how the police department budget and administrative operations go. There have been some streamlining to that over the last several years. I think also that it would make sense to take a fresh look at that. So beginning on page 14, there is a scope of work for a proposed audit. Again, I think reviews basically in more detail the overview I've just given. So the charge would be to have a third party take a look at these functions and then come back to us prior to the formal budget process of the fall with some items. The second proposed component is an internal review of the investigative services divisions. And again, bringing your attention to page 13 of the packet, you can see the investigative services division, detective bureau, juvenile bureau, special operations group, intelligence officer, our net and TAC teams, and then the property bureau and forensic services. So this is mostly, again, investigative operations. I think there may be an opportunity to look and streamline these functions. Again, looking to keep as many of the frontline officers as possible, but perhaps look at the commander and sergeant level if there's some opportunities to streamline that. So in talking with Chief Eddington, we believe that there are sufficient resources internally to take that on, so we would not need additional resources. Area number 3 is the review of the department's overtime spending. We have shared through much of last year much more detailed accounting of overtime citywide, and we felt certainly as we look at that overtime, there is a large amount amount of overtime in the police department that is not necessarily caused by day-to-day events, but also sometimes caused by special events, our support of Northwestern University athletic events that is not reimbursed by Northwestern. It's significant dollars, and I think would make sense to do a more complete review of that and make recommendations moving forward. So that's the third aspect of this. And then finally, looking at the structure, the command structure of our patrol division. Mostly now the structure is divided into times of day with the commanders responsible for different times of day, with then again the sergeants also part of that mix. I would like to explore a new model of geographic responsibilities where we would have the city divided into 3 areas and have those commanders and sergeants allocated by those geographic areas versus time of day. I think as we look toward our overall goals of community policing, having command staff at the police department responsible for geographic areas, I think makes a lot of sense, and I think could dovetail into any other changes that we make. Certainly, an eye of this is toward the budget. We'll be coming back to the City Council on the 18th with an update of where we stand. We'll have completed the citizen survey that we're in the final days with right now. I can tell you from the information that we've already received is that there's a reluctance by Evanston residents to eliminate anything that we do. And so as we are looking at trying to address not only a general fund projected deficit, but also to make some improvements and some longer term issues regarding reserves in the general fund as well as some other funds, it's going to be a difficult task when everyone believes everything we do is important. And so I think with 50% of our budget being police and fire, we need to begin taking steps to look thoughtfully and carefully at the police department's budget, which is what's outlined here tonight, but also the fire department's budget, and would plan to come back. The fire department's operations are under the purview of the Administration and Public Works Committee, and it's my plan to come back to that committee in the next few weeks to talk about some initiatives that Chief Scott and I are discussing regarding the fire department. This is not something we want to do. This is not something that's being done in any way because of the police department's outstanding service to this community, but the reality is that if we're going to try to make significant impacts on our budget and the ability to raise revenue is limited, we cannot ignore the police department and the fire department. And so hopefully these steps as outlined this evening will set us in that right direction. So Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for letting me bring to you this overview. Certainly look toward any comments that you have. Our next steps then would be to move forward with this management audit, again with an eye toward having it completed in the early fall, and then these other matters begin an internal review.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you, Mr. City Manager. Does anybody in the committee have a question or a comment? Alderman Fleming.
I have a question. So the part about the internal review of the investigative services, I think you mean they're going to review that to see if there's some shifts we need to make there in terms of staffing or the way that that's organized.
That's
Is that correct? Can you just explain why that would not be part of the consultant management audit?
Well, part of it is a function of money. That the $25,000, unfortunately, in this day and age will not buy us much of an analysis. And so I thought it was more important to focus on some of these broader areas. I think the issues in the investigative services division really come down with supervision. And so I feel confident that we can have those discussions internally. If the council feels differently, would certainly appreciate the feedback. But the chief and I, as we've looked at other organizations doing broader audits, the cost is generally 10 times what we have budgeted. And so I want to try to be mindful to get useful information within the parameters of the dollars allocated.
All right, and I have one more question, which is maybe for the chief. Can you give me an idea of how many officers are on the street at a given time?
Good evening, Madam Chairman, Mr. City Manager. We have This is a complicated question. It involves shift minimums. The day shift minimum right now is at 10. Afternoons and midnights are at 13 and 12. One of the things that I need to speak to in this extremely difficult series of discussions we're going to have is the police department and its command staff has been mindful of the budget situation for a considerable period of time, and we have taken steps to address those issues that we control. One of the issues that we have more control over than others is the use of overtime. We, in our last year's budget analysis, 25% of our overtime was used to backfill to make minimums. Based on the complexity of this crisis, the deputy chiefs and I have been working towards solutions to try and reduce that overtime. Year to date, we have cut that hire back approximately in half. Now, overtime has gone up for other reasons beyond our control. For instance, there were no higher back snow events in 2017. There was a higher back snow event in 2018. And so all these little things convert to dollars. What we've done to attempt to address the higher back minimum is a use of the specialized units to attempt to backfill to avoid as much as possible those higher backs. Now, in a 24/7 operation, this becomes extremely complex because there's not a lot of specialized units on the midnight shift. And so that option isn't as available to us from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. as it is from 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. And so in that long answer, somewhere between 13 and 10 is the number of patrol officers on the street at any given time.
All right, so that does not include, like the net and the TACT and those people.
It does not. Those are patrol minimums.
Okay, and then my other question, which I think you probably can answer, sorry, I lost my page. Can you just tell me, the administrative coordinator, is that a civilian or is that a sworn officer?
It's a civilian.
Oh, it is, okay. And I think I have one more, if you can just bear with me. Just for my own clarity, so you have this description of NORTAF, and I know that's a variety of cities. So you have some numbers here, but you don't have one in the Major Crimes Task Force. Do we have like a number of officers? Like the Major Crash Team, it says we have 5 officers assigned, and then I think in burglary we have some other officers. But do we assign officers who are assigned if NORTAF, and I might have this wrong, but if NORTAF is called out, we have certain officers assigned to that?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, but they are also just regular officers when they're not working the NORTAF detail?
That's correct. They're usually members of the detective division or specialized units that allow us to respond to NORTAF without the generation of overtime to backfill patrol shifts. And if I may, since the inception of NORTAF in the mid-'80s, 75% of the NORTAF call-outs have been Evanston cases.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? So, Mr. City Manager, we'll expect to hear, you'll come back to us in the fall, you said, with the results of these various analyses?
Yes, I think I don't expect that we would see a management audit recommendations until, probably hopefully the September timeframe. If we can come back to you sooner with some of the others, we will. If I can make just one final comment, there has been some press coverage of the item this evening, talking about the change in the police department's budget over roughly the last 10 years. And I think it's important to really point out the large increase that we have seen in our police pension payments. So in 2008-9, it was $7.3 million. In 2018, it's $12.5 million. So that's a $5,100,000 change just in our police pension payments. So as we've seen, I think fairly flat staffing costs, fairly flat costs across the board. One of the largest increases has been those police pension costs, and certainly when you look at the fire department, there's very similar numbers. So while the police department, I think, has run very well, has, I think, served this community in an excellent manner, you cannot ignore those large increases in police pension costs as a driver not only for the department's budget but for the city's budget as well, and something that I think we just need to be mindful of, that the pension costs are real and significant, and something that we need to always be mindful to address. As I think you all know, even with these large increases, we're still below 50% funded in our actuarial responsibilities in both the police and fire pension funds, and that's a challenge.
Yes, definitely a challenge. Okay, well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. Then next we're ready for HH3 review of police complaints. And Karen Courtwright, you wanted to say something?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. City Manager, and members of the committee. I'm just here this month following up from the Police Complaint Assessment Committee's presentation last month. And I just wanted to be here to offer our availability, as you have perhaps had a chance to look at the survey findings and the other reports that came out of our committee, and invite you to, reach out to me or the chair, or frankly any member of the committee if you've got follow-up questions. And that was really it.
Okay, great. And then we expect the committee to come back in October, is that right?
Right.
Yep, great. Okay, thank you. All right, so looking at the police complaint report in our packet, does anybody have any questions or comments? All righty. Oops, Alderman Fleming.
One quick question. Commander Wright, can you, now that I've been on CPAC and understand a little bit better about how it works, can you tell us or answer two things? One, I know that the Karen Courtwright's committee had proposed a new complaint form. Can you tell us if you all are moving forward with that, or if you're going to wait until October when everything's complete? And then also, when a citizen puts in the complaint, and I know sometimes they can take a while to go through the entire committee, are they notified as to what the finding is, and if they have any, I'll say, recourse, for lack of a better term?
Sure. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Commander Wright, Office of Professional Standards. To answer your first question, we are moving forward with a revamped police complaint. I did meet with members of the subcommittee just last week, Wednesday, I believe, and that meeting was very productive. We came to a conclusion on a example complaint form that we're going to move forward with. So I think they're going to send that out to their committee as a whole, and that's up for discussion, if I'm not mistaken, this Wednesday night. As far as your second question, once the complaints are completed, we do send out a letter to the complainant. That letter indicates the anticipated date that their complaint will be up for review before this committee. In that letter, we direct them to the website for a copy of the summary before they arrive here, and we do instruct them to check on the website for any changes in the meeting prior to attending.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So arrest record inquiries. Where's that? Find that in my page. So I believe, Alderman Fleming, this is a follow-up to some questions you had. Did you want to?
Yeah, so last week, or I guess several weeks ago, we talked about the arrest records that are currently have been on our website. We came to our attention based on some citizen comment that you could Google someone's name and find their information. So city staff did correct that. They are back online. And so I made the motion that I think we should just take them down because people can access the police records. We have a service where they're emailed out. You can sign up for that online. They're also in our memo talks about how else you can go about getting an arrest record. And my reasoning for that was just as we heard the the attorney speak about her client, he wasn't arrested, he was given an administrative adjudication date with a C ticket, and it was actually holding him back from getting employment because they were able to Google his name and so forth. But I do feel strongly that even though you cannot Google, I understand transparency very well. I don't know the benefit of putting an arrest record on our city website. If you are the one who's arrested, like I said, you will get that when you're arrested or what have you. If you are interested in getting such items, we still can produce it via email. But given that the arrest record does not prove that you are guilty, and I know that there are some other lawsuits, and I think there's one in Cook County now where people have sued because their name is online. And even though, I'm not a tech person and we have it on there now where you cannot Google it, I'm not sure that necessarily still prevents us causing unintentional harm to people who were arrested for any reason, particularly because we don't go back then and say whether or not the person was guilty or not. We have it up there that they were arrested. And I think, unfortunately, we operate in a society where people are guilty until proven innocent and sometimes just guilty just because they were arrested. So Mario did provide us with some information in terms of what we legally are required to do. We do not have to put these arrest records or administrative adjudication listings on the website, so I would like us to consider removing them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you want to make a motion to that effect, I guess? Mm-hmm. What?
I didn't know if there was more discussion.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Okay. So is there any other discussion about this issue? And since we don't seem to be required to put the arrest records online, does that sound like a reason?
All right. So I would like to move that the city, in the practice of posting arrest records as well as administrative adjudication docket, I think they're called docket listings, on our city website effective immediately, and to also remove the old ones that are up there now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Second.
Yeah, so the motion is that we immediately remove arrest records as well as the administrative adjudication listings. I don't know if we call them that, or do we call them dockets? Mm-hmm. Is that the correct name for them? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm talking about, Alderman Fisk? Yeah. From the city website immediately, and I said including the old ones that are up there.
You're not talking internet now. We're talking just on the city's website.
Just on the city's website. No, I'm not going to make the motion to remove. If you want to sign up and have them emailed to you, that function is still available.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So your motion would be that the Human Services Committee recommend this to the City Council?
Yes, that would be my motion.
Okay. And wait a second. Okay. Alderman Fisk?
I'm sorry. How do we let people know that the information is available on the city's website? I guess if you want to access it, how would you know to do that? Mr.
Well,
City Manager?
so you mean if you want to get it?
Transparency website. So if you go under transparency, this has been a long time standing part of the city's transparency efforts. So I think there's a link there. I think there's also a link from the police department.
Okay, as long as there's a link from the police department, I'm okay with that.
But the link, just so I want to be clear with you, so the link now, I guess we need to change the link so the link goes to where you can sign up, put in your email address and it will be emailed to you. I think you can also do that under another section of the website where you can sign up for like the parking notifications and all that stuff.
Right.
But again, this is a reminder that there are statutes under Illinois law that require us to make this information public.
Available.
So,
Yeah, that's what I'm
Right. Yep. Yep. So the information would still be available for people who request it, but
It would still be available. We still have to make it available. It's all in the memo. We still have to make it available, I believe. Well, let me let the city attorney please clarify here.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the Human Services Committee. The items would still be made available upon request. So if someone submits a FOIA or if someone requests the information, we are obligated by state statute to provide the information.
But it just wouldn't be up there for the casual browser on the website.
It wouldn't be. So currently they are on the web. This information is on the website.
Mm-hmm.
And so individuals are able to easily access them.
Mm-hmm.
what this would do would basically would essentially be more staff time and responding to requests for the information, potentially more FOIA requests, things like that.
Or you can sign up to have it emailed to you every day into your
That is correct.
into your personal email box.
Alderman Fisk, did you have another query there? You look.
I'm still mulling.
Sure.
I'm mulling.
You're mulling. Okay. Is there more information that we could provide?
I just want to make sure that we're providing the information that we need to be providing in a way that it is accessible to people. I absolutely agree with the reasoning behind it. There's no question about that. But I don't want it to look like we're unnecessarily making it difficult or hard to find. I just want to make sure information is current, is taken down, that when the issue is closed, that the results of an arrest perhaps it's made clear what the results were of any court appearance.
Well, we don't do that now, right? So right now we put up, or there's a daily arrest log, and so it just says who was arrested. It also says if there was just a crime and there was no one arrested.
Right.
But we don't go back and say, well, Cicely Fleming was arrested for speeding and it was thrown out in court. We don't do that. So all we have up there now is that Cicely Wilson was arrested for speeding, and that's it. So I don't find it necessary to have staff go back and then say what happened in each case, right? But we still can make the information available. It's still, I think, will be very transparent if you're so interested to click a box and get it in your email every day. And we still will, we're still within the Illinois law.
And that's where I'm at, is that if we make that so that people know how to access the information and choose to get it in their email, that's fine. I don't need anything
so
more
maybe
than
we
that,
can,
but I just want to make sure that anyone new coming into the community is able to find that on our website. That's all.
Right. So I'm happy to take that up and work with the IT department to change where our link is that goes to the records, to make that link go to sign up here for the record or something.
Because I have a hard enough time finding all sorts of things on the website.
I do as well, but that's a different topic.
It is a very different topic.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So are we ready to vote on the motion to recommend this to the full city council? Then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, then we'll take that to city council. And that, are there any items for communication, Mr. City Manager? All righty, then somebody make a motion to adjourn.
May I make a referral real quick before we adjourn?
Sure.
Sorry. I would like to make a referral for the Evanston Police Department to produce a memo that explains if we participate in the Chicago Gang Database. I was at a workshop where they talked a lot about this, so I don't know if that's something we participate in or not. So I'm happy to just receive that information myself if the rest of the council's not interested. Also, I know we talked about this in a youth meeting, but I'm interested to just kind of keep abreast to our summer interaction with the youth. So I don't know if it's possible if we can have police just provide an update at our next Human Services meeting or the next few during the summertime, just kind of our youth interaction. And maybe also include our youth outreach team, because I know the chief mentioned they're going to also be kind of downtown and at the beach and stuff, keeping kids safe. But I think that I thought I'd like some kind of monthly report over that during the summer if possible. And you can tell me, Chief, offline what you can provide and what you can't.
What is a police interaction report?
Well, I don't know. I would just like to know, right, we had some issues last year with our youth, so I would like to know how our police are interacting with our youth this summer. So if the chief has a plan.
Madam Chairman, if the alderman could provide some more specificity, that would be handy, because, for instance, the Explorers were with us Saturday morning at the anti-violence rally. I would consider that a youth interaction, but that's not what you're asking me.
Yeah, so maybe I've made the referral now, so maybe I can talk to you and kind of flesh out what I'm thinking.
If you would do that, that would.
And then I can.
I guess, Madam Chair, this is an awfully broad request. And I guess if the committee would take a moment right now to flesh this out, we have interactions with residents every day.
Right, so I'm
The
interested in our.
bulletin is available by email.
I'm interested in our interactions with our youth, and I will classify youth as being, middle school and high school students. Maybe that's too broad, but I'm thinking of the summer that we had last year, where we had an unpleasant interaction with the youth, and we spent a lot of time talking about what we were going to do to prevent that from happening. So I don't know if Chief spent a day at a rally or. Never mind. Remove it. I will speak to the chief about it. It doesn't need to be a report. I'm just interested in the topic. So I'm happy to just speak with the chief about it individually.
Again, Madam Chair, members of the committee, if an individual alderman is going to be asking for data collection, I'm a little uncomfortable.
Well, if no one else is interested, I don't need to make the referral, but I would like to make the referral for the gang database.
Certainly.
And
That's more direct than I can answer that question. And
Okay.
my reason to come up here to prolong this was I don't want to provide you with statistics that aren't focused on what you want to know. And so that
right, yeah, right. So I mean, I don't know I don't really know, aside from when people complain, quite honestly, how we interact with youth, right? Because there's a lot of things. So I know we do the Explorers, right? But are we picking up 20 youth a night for curfew? Are we picking up, youth in the park who are there just kind of mulling around because we don't have enough youth activities? I just don't know how much during the summer are we shooing kids away from downtown? I don't know the kind of interactions we're having that on my end I would like to be more aware about. So as I'm thinking of budget and programming and things, I can say, hey, we need more activities between 9 and 10 at night, or whatever the issues are that you're seeing, where particularly you're dealing with youth who maybe don't have a structured activity.
Alderman, what I will do is compile a list of our service codes, forward it to the city manager to be shared with the city council, and we can kind of pick and choose off of a menu of what you want to see. And I hopefully that will be closer to the information that you want.
Perfect, thank you.
But Chief Eddington, what then will that require? So if we have service codes, so does that mean running every contact card every day?
I will talk with Sarah Jones, who is currently the acting boss in records, and to get an understanding of how difficult it will be for her to run that report on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis to be available at this meeting. That will be part of the response to you to say, if we do this, it's going to cost this amount of time.
So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I guess I'm still at a loss. That sounds like a lot of work.
All right, so let me help you. What if we did my ward? Because I'm interested in citywide, because we have a lot of youth. We have a lot of youth who are going to be out this summer. I do not want to have another situation where we have parents or youth or whoever who have, had maybe an unavoidable interaction with our police, right? And so I'm happy to do it just for my ward and work with the chief and my neighborhood officer on the situation, but I don't find that most of the youth are not hanging out in the ninth ward, right? They're at the beach or downtown or somewhere else. But if no one else on the committee is quite interested, then I'm happy to drop it and speak to the chief.
Yeah. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Thank you. So I'm certainly share your interest in what our youth are doing and how they're engaging with police. I think one thing that's been helpful is a recent request that I made to get access to all of the summer youth activities and programming, so that if there is some engagement, they can be redirected to programming that is of interest to them. So I think that will be helpful, and I'd hope that the police are aware of these resources and can direct our youth to age-appropriate programming.
We are aware, and we have an excellent relationship with the outreach team in their resources, and I think that has worked very smoothly behind the scenes for these proactive steps to find employment and other opportunities for youth that come to our attention by various ways.
So I would like to ask that if you are out policing and you see a window of time or a specific target area where there's trouble, that you communicate that to the council, and we can make sure that we do the proper outreach with the community to inform the families of resources that are available for them.
I understand.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody have their marching orders, I guess?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Then did we have a motion to adjourn?
Move adjournment.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.